Okay, welcome everyone to the Tuesday, October 8th Working Group Component Standard meeting. We had a couple things on the agenda today. Let me share my screen here. So the first thing that I wanted to make sure we discuss is just, with regard to our mentorship program, kind of like what's the best way to manage, getting face time with mentors and kind of check-ins and support. Like we have the custom Slack channel, we've got the email list. People seem to be using that to ask questions. That's good. I guess my main question was like, is this weekly meeting going to be enough face time for everyone to get the support that they need? And if not, maybe we should set up kind of like an office hours session later in the week or something like that. So I don't know, what do people think about that? Should we just go ahead and set it up now? Should we kind of wait and see whether people are able to get enough out of this meeting?
Well, I'm not sure about the new contributors since last week. I can speak from my experience that I needed like a bit more time for with Lee to speak me through some issues, just like some code work and ask some questions. And I doubt that like this meeting is only like half an hour. I don't think it's enough to clarify those questions, and I don't think it's the right kind of place for it to really dive deep into these topics. But on the other hand, I'm not sure what the outcome has been since then. I think I've seen a couple of people ask questions in the Slack channel, but I'm not sure if there was anyone yet who said, okay, can we do like a code walk or something like that? But I do really like the idea of office hours, just for like regularity and, people to show up maybe. But of course, it would depend on the availability of people and stuff.
Right. Yeah, we'd have to figure all that out. All right. I'll talk to Paris and see what we can set up. And, we'll have to find a time that works for most people and all that as well. But I think it's probably better to set it up so it's available for people, because I imagine people might not ask to have one if it's not set up.
Yeah.
So, okay, we'll start there and then see if that's enough and go from there. Yeah, thanks. Okay, so the next thing, Alex, is your strict serializer and kubelet.
Yeah. So basically, just a quick update. I mean, Mike, you've been commenting on that. Thank you very much. I think the blocking issue was from Jordan saying that we implement like some lenient path, basically, which only exists for B1, beta 1, I think, and then we emit warnings. And as soon as that one's deprecated, we can remove that. I've added that one on suggestion of Jordan. I haven't had a review yet on that. We'll see. He'll probably get back to me later this week. The other one was, I think, the discussion we had, Mike, about the error wrapping. So, I mean, for the kubelet in particular, the basically when the error occurs, it gets returned in a format sprintf, or it's like a string gets returned with the error inside of it, so we can't really check it in tests. I set up errors.wrap, which is a third-party library, and then I tried to do the new Go 113 style with the %w, which I think is not supported yet. So my question would be, at this point, do we want to use the errors wrap for time being, and then once we have Go 113 we basically patch that one again, or what would be the best way forward?
Yeah, errors wrap is probably the best, or just if it's possible to not wrap, which it may not have been, that's another option. Yeah, probably just use the third party library. The one thing that I was a little concerned about, just because it looks fragile, is here expecting to only have to call unwrap once and then check that it's that kind of error. It would
Yeah.
be better if you could do a recursive unwrap or something to make sure that it,
Mm.
implements that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, this will get solved with Go 113 because basically the arrows as does like trail back all the way until it hits that kind of error. But yeah, sure, I can look into that.
yeah, and just don't take too much time on it. If it turns out that it's too much work, then just do it this way for now,
Okay,
and then we'll fix it when we do support 113 in
cool.
Kubernetes. Yeah.
All right. So I'll work on that, and then I'll ping you again. Maybe you can have a final look over it, see what Jordan says, and then hopefully this can get
Yeah,
merged.
it sounds good. The other thing I think was this. So I don't think we're blocking on having to do a V1 beta 2 now that we have the lenient path, right? But I think we should talk about what that would look like, because the strict codec has no like positive effect on users using V1 beta 1 in once we add the lenient path, right?
You mean like it only emits warnings? Basically, it's
Yeah.
yeah.
And we should, you should probably make sure we log a warning. Yeah, he said that.
Yeah, I think if you look on view changes, I'm not sure if it tells you that. I've already like did some implementation. Not sure if that's the right way to do it. All right.
I'll find it in there.
Yeah. So basically logging warnings now, and it shows up in everything. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, like what would be, is there another way to handle this? I mean, at some point we will have to first introduce warnings, and then at some point, just tell them no.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's one way to do it, but that's kind of antithetical to what we're trying to do with component config, which is guarantee the stability of those APIs. Like the provide warnings and then eventually yank it was the flags approach. With like you deprecate a flag and then yank it, right? And we're trying to get to a place where those kinds of changes are reflected in API versions. So that if you build on top of an API with a given version, as long as that version's available, it's stable.
Yeah.
So I think the V1 Beta 2 suggestion makes sense. We had a discussion in a previous meeting about how this is probably not an impactful change for most people, because most people probably don't have typos in their configuration. However, it is, in principle, more correct to do this kind of change in a V1 Beta 2. So I think that's okay. Again, we're not blocking this PR on it, but we should figure out what that transition looks like. There are pre-existing examples in lots of other actual API server APIs who've gone through that kind of transition. So we might look to that for some instruction on how to actuate that change.
What would be a good approach to tackle this problem? I mean,
we have to go look at some history or talk to Jordan about it. He's probably been involved with more of those transitions.
Okay. So basically, we can ask Jordan if he has any input or suggestions how we could handle this.
Yeah, just add a band. We don't have to do it in this PR.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So the kube scheduler merged. So we have the strict ones in kube scheduler, which I think is nice. And then there's one for kube proxy, which I haven't been able to get any traction. I posted on the kube network Slack. If you go to the PR, there's the issue, and then you can get to the kube proxy one. Go to the description. So I've been messaging Tim and Caesar, I think is his name, on the PR on Slack. They haven't got back to me. No replies from the Cube, from the SIG networking channel. I tried to assign a couple more approvers. That was just yesterday. So basically, yeah, I haven't gotten any feedback for the past 14 days. So maybe, I don't know if you have any idea how to accelerate this a little bit.
Let me take a look at it. I mean, generally, you just want to ping people.
Yeah, I tried to do this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there was also a question with this of whether we need to do the same lenient path thing, right? Or V1 Alpha 2. Because even like there was an argument of even though it's alpha, a lot of people use just built on top of the alpha API.
Yeah.
Which like puts us in a frustrating place because they shouldn't have built on the alpha API if they wanted a stable API. But we have to respect the reality that breaking a lot of people is bad. So
yeah,
maybe doing alpha 2 is the way to go.
I mean, it would be nice to maybe, I don't know if like the mailing list is a good place for that. We like started this discussions like, hey guys, how should we proceed with these issues? We're working on those. It's kind of blocking us at the moment, and then maybe get some responses from Jordan or so, and then if we have it,
I would talk to Rosti as well.
Yeah.
About the kube-proxy stuff because he had that move kube-proxy to beta cap that involved the refactoring the modes stuff. And I think he was going to start doing that in a V1 Alpha 2. So we might be able to piggyback on that and enable the strict decoder in V1 Alpha 2 as well. That's part of that work.
I mean, I'm kind of confused as to what we think we would be breaking because this is really more of a bug fix and additive improvement.
Yeah. I think it's mostly in principle that behavior changes in a way that the same configuration would work in one version and not another.
That's not true that going to an older, we would have to change the way that the scheme is structured based off of the version that the person is parsing. Because this is a runtime thing. Like if you import the newer dependencies and try to use the old API, you still get the new behavior. Because it's strict.
Right.
This change affects behavior regardless of what API version you're using.
Right. So the solution that Jordan gave for that was to have a multi-codec, basically, that where one is a non-strict codec that understands only the prior version, and the other one is a strict codec that understands all versions. And if the strict codec fails, you fall back to the non-strict that only understands the prior version for backwards compatibility.
Interesting.
So yeah,
I'm really not convinced that we want that unless we have some proof that people are using like extension fields or something in order to compose YAML.
I mean, it's also like people in theory can have a typoed key. Like, yeah, it's a mistake, but if everything in their production is working correctly with that typoed key, we do risk breaking them by implementing a strict codec. I don't think it's a mistake to just be cautious about it.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that we are thinking about it. I think it's a good thing to be very, very considerate of users, especially when people are using kubelet component config and kube-proxy component config. But yeah, I mean, just like like putting myself in the shoes of operating a cluster, if I have keys in my config that do not have effect. And the behavior is that the component doesn't start when I do an upgrade, and it gives me an error message that says, hey, this key is like, that sounds great. That sounds much better than before.
Yeah, it's definitely a better behavior. I think we have to separate the, I've opted into the better behavior from, I didn't change anything and now I'm broken because you implemented a better behavior. So making it opt-in by upgrading to, a new API version that's basically the same as the existing one would be that's a nice way to enable people to make that transition on their own terms.
That's pretty convincing. Yeah.
Okay. So Alex, it didn't seem like it was too hard to implement that soft path, right?
I'm not sure if I've done it in the correct way, and it may be a bit hacky. It's like when that config's loaded, or when you load the config and you get a strict error, then decode it with we want better one instead and give a warning, basically. So just for this version it works. It's not like somewhere central with Codec Factory. It's just like in the logic where the kubelet config gets loaded. So this,
I'll take a look at it.
Yeah, have a look at it.
I think that does sound okay. I mean, it's just kind of like a negotiation process.
Yeah.
To find the equivalent that works.
I mean, I think it's like, because we've been talking about this like for a while now. I don't know if it makes sense to bring this discussion somewhere publicly in, like the mailing list, and you get some people in who have like Jordan, or like people who work on this API machinery, and say, okay, this is what we do, so we agree on this, and then if we have PRs in the future, we can link to this and say, look, we talked about this, can we do it like that? I don't know if it makes sense, just to avoid these discussions in the future when we open new PRs, and then we'll be at the same point. It's like, oh, should we really do this? I don't know.
You can always point to past decisions. I think like even the kubelet PR, right, where we've had that discussion, is sufficient. That's an open discussion. Like,
okay,
several community members outside of this working group are involved in that. So in that case, I don't know if there's a reason to start an equivalent discussion.
Okay.
Because then you just end up spending time managing that thread.
True. All right. So
but in general, yeah, it's fine. Like if you need advice on a design decision, to go hit the mailing thread for it.
Cool. All right. So we'll just basically use this discussion and say, look, we've walked through this there. I mean, we have one merge for V1 alpha 1. There should be no problem, But if it's like a higher version, look there. This is how we done it there. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I think this works for now for us, and it like is safe for all users. So it's probably the reasonable thing to do.
All right. Sounds good.
Cool. So does anyone else have anything they'd like to bring up today, talk about, code review?
Are you able to do a SIG update for the main meeting for cluster lifecycle?
Oh, for cluster lifecycle? Like just repeat the community meeting?
Yeah, just basically I always join that meeting and report on progress, what people are up to, what we need help on.
Oh, like, okay. You just are going to miss it this week, so you need someone to go.
Yeah, it would help me if I didn't have to go.
Sure. When is it?
It's in the next, like, 10 minutes.
Oh, I can't make that, actually.
Yeah.
It should be fine to skip it this week.
Yeah.
Next week.
Or, I don't know if you could just put in some sentences and say inside of the meeting notes, maybe, the cluster lifecycle.
Yeah, send me a link to those notes.
Cool, I will.
sometime.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. All right, thanks everyone.
Cool. Thank you.
Have a good one.
Bye bye.